Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the first place champion, multiple YCS, multiple talented Joshua Schmidt. Woo! How do you feel?
I can't really put it into words yet. I don't think I've really understood what happened, but yeah, I think I won.
Three times. So you played Runick Spright. What's that about?
I think it's the best deck by far. I don't think it's close. The only matchup I was scared of the entire weekend was like the mirror match, which I think is a good sign. But yeah, I don't.
Any reason you didn't go with the tier, I suppose, was the supposed best deck?
I think tier is just way too exploitable, as this deck shows. It's like I didn't have a hard time against tier at all weekend. I think the Runick engine is just like the most broken stuff we have in the game right now. You pair that with Sprite, which is like also up there. I don't know. I think the deck is just way too strong.
Okay, let's have a look at your lists.
So this is not just my work. A huge shout out to the entire team, E-Man.
The entire YCS.
We did a lot of work together on this, mostly Nico, Ben, Philip. Also, I talked to Pac and Christian and Hani a little bit about it. They brought it to the YCS in Quito. We played 3 blue and 3 jet, which looks very standard, but I don't think it is. Last weekend at regional, I played 2 and 2 with the idea that you don't want to see multiples and your Runick cards draw you into these cards most of the time anyways, but then I realized you still really want to see them, so I bumped them up to the max just for consistency reason. I side out 1 jet going second a lot because you don't really want to draw multiple sprites going second. And then you play 1 carrot and 1 red. I was really close to playing Pixies. I think Pixies is really good even though you don't have a battle phase. I think being able to elf for a blue on your opponent's turn or starter for a blue on your opponent's turn and get Pixies makes it harder for your board to get outed. So I was between like, this could have been a Pixies, which some of the E-Man did play the Pixies instead. I did miss it a couple times, but I was happy about the 3 jets as well, because like the worst hands are the ones where you don't see any sprites. Those are the ones that are most vulnerable to hand traps as well. Like any Runick card plus a sprite plays through like a billion hand traps, but if you don't have both, it's like brilliant. So I played 2 Hyperia and 1 Cap Shell. I think these cards are busted in this deck. Hyperia is the better one, which is why we play more of this, but we don't play 3 because we played Lava Golem.
Oh boy.
So Lava Golem is like the only real non-engine we play except for like Talons. Simply because this deck really hates drawing too much non-engine. It's the worst thing that can happen because your engine is so powerful. Your engine plays through everything, your engine draws so many cards. The worst thing that can happen is you draw like hands with only 1 Runick or no sprites or you know, that kind of stuff. And so I wanted the most impactful card in my non-engine slot. I didn't feel like any hand trap was gonna cut it. Like drawing 1 Imperm is not gonna save you from most things. Drawing any one hand trap doesn't really do that. And so I decided to play Lava Golem. It was between Lava Golem and Evenly. I decided to play Lava Golem because it's better mid-game, because this deck grinds a lot and it's like you go first, they break your board, you like have a Lava Golem, that's good. That happened quite a lot this weekend. You can bounce it with the Wind Up Kitten, and so this is like, we have 4 normal summons. I was playing this last week. I was playing 1 and 1. The reason why I ended up putting 1 more is because I didn't really mind drawing like a Lava Golem with 1 normal summon, like one of these, because it's actually not bad to discard these for your Hugin, because then you actually have a good target to elf, right? Because if you don't, like, this deck doesn't have like the swap frog combos or whatever, so you don't have a good target for elf on your first turn. So if you discard one of these, it's actually fine. So the way these work, ideally you want to normal summon one of them, get the draw off of it, gigantic for the other one, right? So like let's say normal summon Hyperia, draw, make a gigantic, summon Cap Shell, link Cap Shell into elf, draw another card, and then elf back the Cap Shell, and then make a Djinn Buster with it and like a sprite. And then when you detach from the Djinn Buster on the opponent's turn, you draw another card. So it's like, and then you revive this with elf, so you draw 4 cards if you see one of your normal summons. You'll draw 4 cards, which is like, it's completely unethical. This entire deck is unethical, by the way. And then you play 1 Kitten, which like, it's a weird main deck card, just like Lava Golem, because both of these cards suck going first, but it's just necessary. This deck doesn't have a battle phase, so you always need to clear boards, and this card's insane. You just like gigantic summon it, bounce, link it off for elf, bring it back, bounce, because like when this card was printed, once per turn didn't exist yet. Yeah, and that's all monsters. And then the rest is all spells. 3 starter and 1 smasher. I also played 2 starter last week, but once again I was valuing consistency more than more non-engine slots, because that's what I removed from last week. I went even lower on non-engine because I was like, last week I was like, okay, I'll play 6 cards for going second. So I played like 6 hand traps, and I was like, even those were too many. Even that was too much non-engine. And so I bumped up like these back up. And then the rest of this is almost only Runicks. 3 tip, 3 flashing fire, 3 curses, 3 destruction, 3 slumber. This is completely standard, like any less than this is horrible. And then I also decided to play 1 of each of these ones. I also think you could play a golden droplet as well. Like honestly, you want to see as many Runicks as possible. The only thing stopping you from playing like even more is just you have space issues, because you also really want to see your sprites and your normal summons. But I really think, if anything, throughout the weekend, I drew not enough Runicks, even though I played 17. So I think the number 18, you could argue for that being instead of one of the starters or one of the Jets. I think that would have also been a very fine decision. And then we played 2 Fountains, which is absolutely necessary because there's like multiple lines where you need 2. First of all, Cosmic's in like a lot of decks right now. But then you go like, there's a lot of lines where if you draw this card or you want to tip for this to be safe from hand taps, you'll activate this, you'll summon Hugin, and you want to chain block your Fountain with the Hugin so you can't get ashed or belled. So you need a second one in the deck to activate the Hugin. And then you can do some neat stuff where you draw with this one, you add a second one, you activate it over that, and you can draw with that as well because it's also not hard ones per turn. And then you'll make Gary add this one back, and so.
Is it really not 3-off?
Last week I sided a 3rd copy because of Cosmic Cyclones and because it's very good against hand traps, right? Like if you get impermed on Hugin and you don't have the Fountain, it's kind of annoying because, yeah, Hugin is also not hard ones per turn, so you can like XYZ with it and summon another one, but that requires you to have like a lot of Runicks in hand, right? Like you need a Runick to summon this card for that, then you need an extender to go into Gigantic, then you need another Runick to summon another one, discard for that, and then you also need another Runick to trigger your Fountain. So that's why a 3rd one really helps playing through hand traps. But I don't think it's something you need in the main deck because like one of the worst things is like drawing into multiple Fountains after you draw like a Fountain. I think 2 is the perfect amount. Simply you have backup after Cosmic. You can still activate Hugin if you draw one. It's ideal. Also, Runick Mirrors alone make you have to play a second one. I had like 4 or 5 Runick Mirrors where like they activate a Runick card, first card banished like this. I'm like, okay, glad I'm running 2. It's like very important. And then the last card, which I kind of wanted to be, like I said last week, I was playing more non-engine than just Lava Golem. And I kind of felt like it was necessary for going second in like Spright Mirrors, because the Spright Mirror, if you go second against like Evil Twin Spright or Runick Spright, it's really hard to catch up on the advantage that they do. So I wanted a non-engine card that could help do that, but at the same time, I didn't want to brick on non-engine going first, or like not brick, but like if you draw too much non-engine, your hands don't play through hand traps anymore, and that's why I decided for the last one to be Tactics. It's probably the worst card in the deck. For consistency reasons, you could make this like a Pixies and another Runick. That would work. I was just afraid of not being able to break boards, and this is like really good in Spright Mirrors, which is what I was most concerned about, like going second into Spright Mirrors. I even sided a 3rd one for like the very hand trap heavy builds, because like, yeah, I don't know, this deck really just only loses when it goes first, when it gets like hand trap to infinite, which I felt like this was a good reason to play this as my non-engine. I know it looks weird that I played 2 Hyperia and 2 Talons, but I think it was just a matter of this seemed like the right amount of normal. So I'm like playing 1 and 1 in a deck that always wants to see these cards when you go first as like 1 copy felt wrong. But like this deck is a little weird because it draws so many cards, right? I've never really played a deck that consistently draws like what is it, like 5 or 6 cards on turn 1, which is why a lot of 3-ofs didn't feel that good. The only 3-off that felt good was Lava Golem. That one you need to open. It doesn't matter when in my turn I draw an Hyperia or a Capshell or a Talons. It doesn't matter when I draw that. It's like at some point during my first turn, I'd like to see these cards. And Runicks draw 3 cards. Gigantic gets you the Capshell out, so you draw a card after that. And so you have a lot of time to see the Talons or the Hyperia. The only card you need to open is the Lava Golem. That's why that is a 3 of non-engine. And that's it, 40 cards. The only card I would like to play is the Golden Droplets. I think another Runick would have been nice. But I don't necessarily know what I would take. Also, Pixies is cool.
There's no concerns with maybe like a main deck Eradicator or Spell Counselor or something?
Yeah. The reason why I chose Lava Golem, one of the biggest issues that this deck has, which wasn't really an issue, and I'll tell you why. It's like Eradicator and Spell Counselor, obviously. I predicted no one to play Eradicator in Tier Limits because that version just sucks right now. It loses to Nib every single time if you go for like the Griffin play, because you can't really make Appaloosa and Griffin super easily early on. So I predicted people to not be on Eradicator. What I think people would, like the only deck that can realistically play one of the 2 cards, like Eradicator or Spell Counselor, I think is Lunateer. But Lunateer always goes for Spell Counselor because they're a rank 4 toolbox deck. They always go for the Garis into Spell Counselor, and so Lava Golem outstat. Which is why I chose Lava Golem over Evenly Matched as well, because like Evenly Matched is only is like they might have Carrot, they might leave up the Spell Cancel and I might not be able to out it. It's like Evenly is and like I need to open Evenly, I can't use it mid game in a grind game, and Lava Golem does all these things a little better, except for clashing with normal summons. That would have been the only cool thing about playing 3 Evenly, is I could have played 3 Hyperia, which I really wanted to, but yeah. Extra deck, 3 Hugin and 1 Gary. I really wanted to play Munin. I missed Munin a couple times. Not for time reasons, but because people don't really know about this, but Munin has an effect where it protects Runick Fountain from being targeted. And a lot of people, like almost everyone I faced this weekend, played Cosmic Cyclone, right? And so like, usually if you activate a Runick spell, they will not chain Cosmic Cyclone immediately. They will wait and see what you do with the Runick spell, right? And so what you do is you summon Munin, activate this, and if they Cosmic, you can negate with Munin, which is a play that I wish I had sometimes, because sometimes I was playing into boards going second, I was like, activate Fountain, activate Spell to Summon, they would be like, okay, and I was like, I wish I could play around Cosmic now, but I didn't have room for it. I couldn't bring myself to play 5 fusions, and I couldn't bring myself to cut. I mean, this is not cuttable. 2 of this is absolutely mandatory. You could argue about the third, but I do think I made the third more often than I would have needed the Munin. But yeah, the Munin would have been really nice. This is probably the most controversial choice, and I think I'm the only one in E-Man that did it, but I played only 2 elves. Everyone that I talked to was like, yo, 3 elf is necessary, you need 3 elf, this deck's a grindy deck, and I'm just sitting here like, if I get to turn 3 with this deck, I've already like probably gone like plus infinite. Like this deck just wins if it gets to turn 3. And I didn't miss the third elf a single time. I think in theory it can only come up in like Runick Mirrors, but even there you get benefit from the card you play instead, right? Which is in my case Dark, because like some didn't play Dark from my team, or like other people I talked to didn't play Dark, because it did not come up that often in testing. But once I decided to play Lava Golem and Talons over stuff like Evenly, this card ended up coming up way more often, because you would like Talons take their Dragostapelia, Talons take their Kaleido Heart, whatever, and then Dark that back, or like use this as an additional, just like an additional way to get through. Like in Spright Mirrors, being able to get Blue and Jet if you don't open them is really nice. Yeah, this card was great all weekend. I played IP, Unicorn, and Avramax. Those are my 2 IP targets. The Unicorn is just for utility and also really good in the mirror because it outs the Fountain without destroying it, which they could protect from with Hugin. Did that a couple times. And Avramax is just like a card that I made it once or twice only. It's not really that important what you play for IP. It's mostly just that this one I think gives you the highest chance to just survive. Even if they can out it, if you make Avramax, you'll probably live and probably not take much damage. And that was the most important thing about this, is simply make this and survive. Mostly against Tyr and the mirror. Like in the mirror, if Smashers is banished, it's very hard to out this card without Lava Golem or
Talons like you did in the final.
Talons, yeah, you can Talons it. You can also, I think, negate the attack boost with red, I think. Can you red it? Because it's damage step. And yeah. So like you can make a bigger monster than this, but you don't have a battle phase in the mirror so well. And then 2 gigantic. This one's really important for the Cap Shell turn 1. You want to have Cap Shell under this so you draw another card for free. Onibi Maru is, even though we have Kitten, it's really nice to have another way to get stuff off the field without a battle phase. And my main issue with these 4 XYZs, without Onibi Maru, if they have like a negate on board that I have to bait first, I don't have an XYZ to go into that just straight up like baits, I don't know, a Barone, a red, whatever. And so I think this card is really good for when you start with like your sprites and your Hugin, and you really want to force something without committing your gigantic sprite, and that's why this card is really important. And then the Mannequin Cat, which I guess we'll get to when this is mainly for post side. It has some uses in game 1 because it's just good in some situations, but mostly it's for some stuff in the side deck that's very interesting. I sided 3 Sphere Moods. Alongside Lava Golem. As you notice, there's not a single hand trap in my deck. I don't think hand traps were the right approach for this metagame, because I feel like most of the decks right now weren't stopped by hand traps. Mostly Spright, just like doesn't care about hand traps at all if you draw any average hand. And Sphere Mode is like a solution to the decks that go really ham, like Adventure, Barone, that type of stuff. It's also good against Flunder, which Lava Golem isn't that good against Flunder. You can use it, you can like negate statue and then tribute the rest, it works sometimes. But Sphere Mode was really good. I didn't always side all 6, especially because my list was apparently going around the venue on Friday. So I had a lot of people like knowing what my side deck looked like. I don't know why. I don't know how it got out, how it got leaked. So on some occasions when I knew I was playing someone who knew my list, because they were like given the list on Friday, sometimes I wouldn't side these simply because I would predict them to let me start, and some of them did. But it's still like you side out a couple more normal summons going second and side in the Sphere Modes against every matchup where it's really good. For the Mannequin Cat, I played Chaos Hunter, Thunder King, and then this thing.
Oh boy.
So I guess this is the most obvious one, quote unquote. This is Aqua. It's like an old ass common from, what is it, Shining Darkness. Neither player can special summon monsters with 1,800 or more attack. So what you do against Tier Limits is you make a board of Mannequin, Elf, and IP or Jin, which is a board that they cannot super poly. And then as soon as they special summon any Aqua, you just go Mannequin Cat, target their monster, and put the Newman here, which means they can't summon anything that's over 1,800 attack, which pretty much locks them out of the game completely. So that's what you do with Newman against Tyr. Against any Spright deck, you do this. If they summon any Spright, because they're all Thunder, or in the mirror match, if they summon Hugin, it also works, and that's light. So like they'll summon a Spright or Hugin, activate the effect to search, you chain Mannequin Cat, bring out Ryo, which stops the search from the Spright or the Hugin. Like you don't get the search here, and then if you have to keep playing somehow, like let's say you start with the Hugin and I chain this, right, and you're like, you can't target this, so like your Flashing Fire, your Freezing Curse doesn't out it, And like, how do you keep playing with the Hugin up there? Probably special summon a blue, not use the effect because you can't add. And then what are you gonna do? Like, make a gigantic? I'll just negate it. So like this alone, like stops 1-2 searches, kills 2 monsters, stops the gigantic from X. It's like it's crazy good in the mirror matches if this ever works out. And there's not much counterplay to it because like it just doesn't exist. And the Chaos Hunter was like a last minute addition. People were thinking about siding this for like the mirror match because it stops people from banishing, but this was not, I didn't side this in the mirror match at all. It's not very good. The reason I played this card is against Dimension Shifters. So what you do is, if Flunder shifters you, like let's say I go first and they shifter me, which is normally really bad for this deck, all you do is you summon a Mannequin Cat, you bring back the shifter to their field, and you target Mannequin Cat and it's dark, so you get to summon Chaos Hunter from your deck. And this card says your opponent cannot banish cards, and since the shifter is your opponent's card, trying to banish your cards, it disables the shifter, and so you can keep playing normally, like it didn't happen. And as well, on their turn, it shuts off Evenly Matched, it shuts off Cosmic Cyclone, it shuts off the Flunder Quick Play spell, it shuts off the Flunder Fields spell, and it shuts off all their like recurrence because they don't get banished, right? So literally, it turns Prosperity as well. It turns an auto loss from getting shifted into literally you want to get shifted if you play this card. Like literally when you play against Flunder going second after siding, you want them to have shifted because it's better for you. And I think that alone was like a reason to play this card, because it's like a Omega Called by the Grave on shifter, but you don't have to draw it. It's like it's just in your deck somewhere. You don't care where it is. It even works if you draw it, because like Mannequin Cat can just summon from hand, deck, or grave. So like yeah, which is also why it's not that bad to draw these as like a one of, because you can pitch it, then they'll see it coming, right? Because it's in your graveyard. But as long as they don't have like a good out to it, it doesn't matter. You can just summon it from the graveyard with Mannequin Cat. Yep.
No comment.
No comment.
What's your cost ID?
3 droplets. Droplet was like a card that I didn't side that much. This was like the card I sided when I wasn't sure if they were gonna let me go first because of Sphere Mode. I was like, okay, Droplet is like good going second, good going first, but this was not meant to be for like the meta decks. It just ended up being a card that I liked to put in my deck when I didn't feel confident siding Sphere Mode because I wasn't sure if they were gonna commit into it because they knew I was playing the card, or if they would make me go first. I would put droplets against some meta decks, but for the most part, this card was for Despia, because I was afraid of the Raz Disciple lock, and it was against Ibli decks, and it was also against Mathmex, because it is actually good against Mathmex when they go for the trap, summon the monster. Like that's the thing that's the most annoying for this deck, right? It's just like negate the XYZ and you're probably fine. So that's what Droplet was for, but like as it turns out, it was also really good whenever I didn't want to side Sphere Mode. I played the third Talons, like I said, against hand trap decks. This slot, I like this, especially in the Sprite Mirrors going second. I think Talons is a great card. So I don't really know if I would change this, but this is like these last 2 slots, which is also called by, it's just mainly for when you go first and you just want to make sure that your combo resolves, you take out like the Lava Golem and everything. So yeah, against hand trap decks, against like Elf going second, it's alright. But those were like the last 2 slots in the side deck that weren't like super crucial, but I like these all weekend. I don't actually think I activated Called by more than once. And then the last card in this deck is Eradicator. It's a little bit different in this deck because you're not trying to actually auto-win with this card. You side it in almost every single matchup simply because a gigantic sprite with a Hugin under it is just 3,200, so you don't have to commit anything to activate this card. It's literally just free. If you draw this card, you get to use it pretty much every time. And so the way you would do it post-side usually is you would end on something like just something that cannot be super poly, like this. And then you Eradicator here. Even if they have super poly, they can't chain it at this time, and then they probably won't be able to play through the Mannequin Cat. So we side this in everything, because even if you hit just a Pearl or Rhino or whatever, I think it's still worth it, simply because knowing their hand when you play this deck is really, really insane, because you just get to use your interruption so much more efficiently, because you don't really have like a card that just stops their entire turn. And if you don't know what they have, it's like sometimes difficult to know when to stop which card. But if you're like, oh, if I just pop this normal summon and I know his hand, he doesn't have any like starter or whatever, like then he can't play, right? So I'll just do that. And of course, it auto wins the mirror match most of the time. It auto wins a couple of decks actually, and that's why I like this card. I Eradicated, I think only 3 times this entire tournament. One time I hit no monsters. The second time I hit, they chained Droplet, sending 2 spells, and the rest of their hand was evenly circular and an extender, so I still lost. And then one game I won with it. But yeah, the card is still very good. You just don't treat it as like sort of this auto-win card only for decks with only spells or only for the mirror. You just side against everything that has even like 8 to 10 to 12 spells, something like that, and just to just to eliminate some stuff like Lightning Storm, Feather Duster, whatever. Get knowledge on what they have, what to play around and whatnot. It's really good. And that's it.
That is the deck list. All right, congratulations. Very thorough. I mean, you basically covered everything that you wanted to either play or not play.
Yeah, the deck is like, I think that the list was really, really strong. I'm very happy that it ended up getting rewarded because I do think our preparation this time was exceptional. I think the deck was really good, and yeah, once again, shout out to everyone who worked on it with me. It's not just my work. Everyone did their part, and I'm very happy it worked out. Thank you all for cheering. The support has been amazing throughout the weekend. I really appreciate all of that, and we're celebrating on stream this week.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations again, 3-time champion. This is Joshua Schmidt's YCS Utrecht winning deck profile.